Yeah, thank you so much for talking with me. And this is a wild movie. It really just right out of the gate, immediately lets you know we're not screwing around. You've got some real violent moments and then a John Carpenter theme right out of the gate. I want to know from you, where did this idea come from to do a horror movie, and what were some of the bands and the movies about bands that really inspired this specific idea?
Well, first of all, we all grew up loving rock and roll, and we all grew up loving horror films. Some of us are like a bit more aficionado than others in the band, but I mean, everybody as a kid, you go to see the horror movies that come out at the time. I think that it begins as a kid in the 70s. It usually begins with Kiss, right?
Mm.
You've fallen in love with the Beatles and Rolling Stones and the Who and classic rock, Led Zeppelin, and then all of a sudden you see Kiss. You're like, oh wow, it's kind of like a comic book come to life, but it's rock and roll and it's scary and spooky and dangerous. And then, growing up watching a lot of these rock and roll movies, whether it's Hard Day's Night or Ramones Rock and Roll High School or Kiss, Meet the Phantom of the Park, whatever it is, there's something about that tradition of rock and roll movies that you just don't really see much anymore. And we had never aspired to make a horror film. It just wasn't in the cards. It wasn't something we'd been looking forward to doing. But about 3 years ago, this friend of mine went to a meeting with some film studio or something, and unrelated to us. And he came out and texted me, said, I just had this meeting and these people want to make a horror film with the Foo Fighters. And I said, that is the stupidest, most ridiculous idea I've ever heard in my life. There's no way we'd ever do it. Why would we make a horror film? It just doesn't seem to. And when we started writing this record, Medicine at Midnight, our latest record, I rented this house in Encino and started demoing songs in this house. Not only did it sound great, I thought, well, hold on a second. We have this spooky old house. We might as well finish making the record, take a couple of weeks off, and then just do some, run and gun, fly by the seat of your pants, sort of extended long form video kind of horror film. And then it just ballooned into this project that was like, it turned into a full-length feature film, which is not what we imagined it to be at first, but it was so much fun. The process of coming up with a basic idea, which was rock band moves into haunted house, singer becomes possessed, murders the entire band, goes solo. Like that was it. That was the initial treatment or pitch. And then we found screenwriters and they elaborated on that. And then we hooked up with the special effects. And then it just started growing until it was like an actual movie. And it took a while for us to realize, like, holy fucking shit, we made a movie, but it wasn't something we'd aspired to do. It just kind of fell in our laps.
And you're right. You really don't see too much of this in the way you did in the 70s or around that era. And there's so many bands who are doing, and artists getting their own glossy music docs right now. But would you like to see more bands trying to experiment in this way, do their own movies, their own ideas, and branch out?
Well, the cool thing is the difference between a band documentary and a band movie, like a feature film, is that the intentions are usually different. So the great thing about music documentary is that it takes you behind the curtain and within the artist. And when you do that, when you learn more about the person behind the song or the story behind a song or the experience that the artist had while writing or recording a song, it adds another dimension to the song so that when you listen to it, you have a new understanding. And it kind of gets its hooks in you deeper that way. That's what I love about documentary. But the thing about bands making rock and roll movies or feature length films is that it just sort of expands the concept of entertainment. Like there's always been those ensembles that jump from movie to movie or genre to genre that are fun to watch. It could be Richard Pryor and oh God, why am I forgetting his name? And the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I can't remember. Anyway,
Gene Wilder. Yes, the train movie.
Things like that.
Yes,
like
the train movie.
You start seeing these ensembles, and I mean, it goes way back to the history of film. that you see it work in this situation. Well, maybe it won't care, but it's, you know, it's fun, I think, to see your favorite group or a group of musicians that you're used to in this one particular setting or medium kind of jump over to this other thing, because we've never done it before. So yeah. I'd imagine that our audience would love to see us in this whole other medium. And it's, I mean, at the end of the day, it's just fun. You know, we've been a band for 26 fucking years. We've accomplished a lot. And so, you know, you sort of sit around and you think, all right, well, what next? And then something falls into your lap. And then you say, why not?
I mean, I want to know, where you go from here.
Time. We've gone, like, we have these long backstage conversations thinking like, wow, well, you know, whether it's a sequel or not a sequel, what are some other bands that would have the fucking stones to try to pull this one off? You know, first thing you have to do is you have to relieve yourself of any humility. You know, you basically, or you have to be humble enough to say, okay, I'm willing to put on like this devil mask and eat my guitar player Chris. Like, there's not a lot of cool in that, you know. And so, but of course, I mean, whether it's Purple Rain or 8 Mile or the Spice Girls movie or fucking, you know, it's just another way to expand on the idea that we're here to entertain you somehow.
Hey, I mean, speaking of eating Chris alive, you know, what did you draw straws to figure out who was going to get killed first, or how you were going to do that? Were you surprised when those ideas came to you of how you're going to do all these things?
So the man that did the special effects, his name is Tony Gardner, and he's been in the movie industry for a really long time. He's kind of a special effects legend. He was in the Thriller video. He invented Chucky and, you know, Bride of Chucky and all that shit. That's Tony. He's the sweetest, kindest, most gentle, down to earth, almost bookwormish kind of guy. But oh my God, what goes on in this dude's head? So we basically, as we were writing the script, we needed to figure out creative and inventive and entertaining ways to fucking murder everybody. So we basically just walked around the property, and he was like, oh my God, you know, it'd be really cool. You know what you should do? You should crucify Taylor or decapitate Taylor. Oh, you know what? We could chop Rami in half as he's having sex with Whitney Cummings. Oh, and then, you know, with Chris, you could slap him in it. And so we were basically just making the list of how we're going to kill everybody. There is a piece of paper with the murder list, like number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. And it was just us walking around the property, cracking up, thinking of the most ridiculous ways to kill everybody. It was really funny, but nobody had to draw straws. I mean, it was kind of in the script, you know, like this one goes first, and then that one goes first, and you know, in the movie, spoiler alert, you don't know who's killing everybody, and then it's revealed towards the end that like it's me. You know, so.
Who's the best actor among the Foo Fighters if you had to choose?
Well, first of all, it wasn't that much of a stretch for us to be the Foo Fighters. Then we throw us in a backstage room and we are a comedy troupe. Like, that's just fucking what happens everywhere we go for the last quarter of a century. But, you know, of course, the script was written to retain the dynamic of the band, but push us in directions that we've never been. So the hardest part for us really was just like sticking to the lines. I mean, we were given lines. We have no problem fucking with each other in real life, but then, you know, of course we had to follow the script. The best actor, it's hard to say, because I remember at the table read, like someone said, oh, there's a table read on Tuesday. We're like, what the fuck is that? We had no clue. And then we sit around the table, we read the script. And by the end of the table read, I'm like, oh my God, Rami Jaffe is the next Pauly Shore. I'm like, he is gonna take over. He's gonna have a fucking string of hilarious movies. But then again, it's like, you kind of can't take your eyes off of Pat Smear when he's on screen, or Taylor Hawkins. That Taylor in the movie, that is fucking Taylor Hawkins. You know why? Because he refused to read the lines in the script. He's like, fuck that. I want to say what I'm going to say. And you watch it, and I watch it. I'm like, yeah, that's Taylor. That's who he is. And nobody's going for an Oscar here, by the way. You know, this is like, it was kind of like, hey, let's get fucked up and make a movie. It's very much like, it was it was nice to be relieved of any of that legitimate responsibility. We walked in thinking, yeah, let's have fun with it.
Well, it's wild and it's just a blast. And I hope, yeah, people check it out. So thank you so much, Dave. Really appreciate you talking with me, and big fan, and look forward to seeing you live again.
Thanks, Brian. We'll be out there. See you.